We now have Mark on the line. Mark, how can we help you? Mark?
Yeah, I just heard the congressman talking about depending on foreign oil when him and the whole Democratic Party was opposed to drilling for oil back last year when the oil prices were $4 a gallon.
Well, Congressman Higgins, how would you respond to the opposition, I guess, that many people, not just you, but a lot of citizens felt about drilling in our own country?
The proponents of drilling are presuming that allowing more drilling, particularly in environmentally sensitive areas, is going to solve our dependence problem. In fact, it wouldn't. It would have a nominal effect on the price of gasoline per gallon. Our problem, Mark, is consumption. We consume much more than we produce. If we drilled everywhere in the United States, regardless of the environmental consequence, that fact would remain. Everybody wants an immediate solution to these problems. We should have been embracing, as we did in this region with hydroelectricity, wind, solar as renewable, clean alternatives many, many years ago. So I'm pursuing an aggressive path toward making this country, this region, environmentally independent, energy independent, and we can do it. It just requires a sustained commitment over the longer term. But drilling, I don't know what you've read or what publications, but if you read the objective analysis on drilling, it would have a minimal impact on the price of oil and thus our overall dependence on foreign oil.
Well, then, if you look at the pure cost of energy, the things that we're proposing in terms of alternative will actually raise the cost of energy.
Well, in the short term, there's opportunity costs, and clearly there's an investment. But what we're trying to do with our initial investment is to drive innovation. So the things that we're doing today are done more efficiently tomorrow, but there has to be a start. And if you want to continue to pay $4 for a gallon of gasoline, don't do climate change. And you know what happens with the American economy. The price of gasoline will go to $4. Everybody pulls back. And then the demand goes down again, and everybody's back to their same behavior. If you really want to change your behavior relative to economic behavior, relative to environmental, you've got to embrace new innovation toward development of alternative energy sources. So we're not dependent on Iran. We're not dependent on Russia. We're not dependent on Venezuela. And drilling, won't do it.
Statistically, a couple things stick out in my mind. I believe I'm not mistaken, we import more oil from Canada than anywhere else in the world. And also, what you suggest, which I believe is somewhat accurate, in that once price of gas came down, our consumer behavior went back to where it was. It hasn't really been supported. We're way down in terms of miles driven in this country over 2 years ago, way, way, way down. And that seems to be holding. So we are seeing some changes in consumer behavior. We've seen, of course, the manufacturers themselves produce many more vehicles that are hybrids, and there's many more options where there was one option in the year 2000. That was only 9 years ago. So at this stage of the game, the markets have adapted somewhat.
Somewhat, but I don't think it's not sustained. You'll see a pullback. It may be true that we receive a lot of oil and gasoline from Canada, but it's not necessarily generated there. It's refined there and then shipped to the United States. We are disproportionately dependent on the Middle East for our oil purchases. The car companies will tell you one of the reasons that they've not adapted themselves to more prolific manufacturing of hybrid vehicles is because the American consumer is very schizophrenic with respect to their demand. In other words, when the price of gasoline is $4 or thereabouts, there is a demand, but once it goes down, that demand falls off. So I think, the point is it's not sustained. There is a modification in behavior, but I think what we're looking for is sustained behavior modification moving forward, where we're clamoring for those more efficient vehicles. Because if gasoline falls to $1.25 a gallon again, which hopefully it will, you're going to see a new demand for SUVs and cars and vehicles that consume more.
And what's inherently wrong with that?
I'm not saying, but it's what you want. I mean, it's if that's what you want as a country, fine. But keep in mind there are going to be periods of uncertainty where, these characters in the Middle East, like Ahmadinejad, act up because they can, because our oil purchases insulate them from real economic and political reform.
Well, I hear you on that, Brian. There's no question about that.